All right, so I'm here recording with Liana Bdéwi, who is a voiceover artist, and she's going to teach us how to make money off of our beautiful voices. And so, Liana, could you introduce yourself and describe what you do?
Yeah, my name is Liana, and I'm a full-time voice actor. I started out as a theater actor, and then I just kind of fell into voiceover, and I found a love for it and a passion for it, and I realized that this was a skill that I could hone and have it be profitable.
Nice.
And yeah.
Awesome. And so, what does a day in your life look like?
Week to week, my life is pretty all over the place, depending on what projects I'm juggling and depending on how many different things I'm doing. So usually my day-to-day, if it's just voiceover, it's basically like a 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. I work out of my house, in my home studio, and it's pretty manageable. But when I start to add in different theater projects, maybe different film projects in the mix, that's when my days can either be 14 hours long or they could be 2 hours long. So it's really one or the other.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what is a misconception that most people have about your field?
Most people think that just because you have a nice voice means that you will do well in voiceover. That is the farthest thing from the truth.
And what would you say is the truth?
The truth is, you, especially if you want to do the kind of voiceover that I do, which is mostly freelance based, so I run it like a business. I would say 80 to 90% of my day-to-day work is negotiating, is reaching out to clients, is editing my audio to send it out and learning about all the logistics behind voiceover. And where I would say 10 to 20% is just physically my voice and the technique and the acting training behind it.
Nice. And what is a misconception you had before you entered your field?
Oh, I didn't know I was going to enter this field.
Yeah.
I got into voiceover purely by mistake and or desperation. I had just finished theater school, and I had finished about 6 years worth of training. And I finished school, I was in Toronto, I was like, yeah, I'm going to get an agent, and no one wanted to hire me. And so I had a teacher who was like, hey, you should look into voiceover because you speak multiple languages and you can work on accents and dialects, and so maybe this is something that would be beneficial for you. And so I took my first commercial voiceover class a couple of months out of school, and I fell in love with it. The coach was like, wow, this is something that you should look into because it's something that you're good at. And so I just kind of ran with that and saved all my money and did as many classes as I could, made a demo, signed with an agency. And then it was my first agent, who's still my agent in Toronto, who recommended that I go this like freelance route. Because she straight up told me in our first interview, she was like, I am maybe going to be providing you with 20% of your yearly income. So she's like, don't quit your day-to-day job. At the time I was working at a catering company as a server. She was like, don't quit your job. She was like,
she's like, I believe in you, but don't quit your job just yet.
Yeah.
Just yet.
Just yet. She's like, you're still learning, you're still green. Yeah. And so she gave me kind of options to go this freelance route, which is like online casting sites and reaching out to clients directly and kind of like building a portfolio of my own. And when I learned that I could have that kind of autonomy, I really fell in love with it because I was like, wow, I get to make my own schedule. I get to be in charge of my paycheck and not have to depend on somebody else to make money.
Nice. And so you did mention that you first fell in love with it at a class. So can you describe like what happened at that class? What was the moment when you were like, wow?
Well, I've always been doing like voices, impressions, characters, things like that from like a super young age. But when I got into this class, which was specifically commercial voiceover, I was like, okay. I listen to commercials all the time. We subconsciously hear them. And it's at first it's very much like parroting. You kind of have to see what kind of commercials, how they're being said, what is the cadence, what's the tone, and learn to mimic that at first and then bring your own spin to it.
Yeah, like learn how to make the wheel before you reinvent it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so because I have an acting background, the teacher was very much pushing me to pursue this because I already had so much of the acting work.
And you have the emotional range.
Yeah, and giving different takes. It's like if you, as an actor, you break down a script a certain way. As a voice actor, you have to do the same thing for a commercial script. Like, who are you talking to? Who's your audience? What are you selling? where are you, like all those basic questions.
And I think the amazing thing about voice acting is that, and I'm sure you know this as well, it's like when you're in theater, you're relying on your facial expressions when you're in theater or TV, but when it's voice acting, you're only relying on your voice to provide all the emotion.
Yes.
So it's, I mean, highly technical, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's way more technical, and you're actually just as active in the booth as you would be on stage, for example. Like whenever I have people watch me in the booth, recording ads, or especially ads, it's funny when it's commercials because you don't expect it to be so animated, but my hands are kind of moving all over the place. It looks like I'm rapping, but I'm just speaking. Like,
you're in it.
I'm just in it.
You're in it.
And doing that, you know, having your body involvement helps bring the text alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned that you do speak several languages. What are those languages?
So I speak English, French, and Armenian fluently, and then very conversational, basic Arabic and Spanish.
Awesome.
And obviously within that comes like accents as well, which I've recently been hired through a lot of e-learning companies to do projects for kids with English with an Arabic accent. And that's like kind of something that didn't expect to work in, but I was like, oh, cool, that's a fun thing.
And I think what happens when you do speak multiple languages is you have an ear for the different phonemes, you have an ear for different sounds and different accents, and you have a tongue for different accents.
Yes.
Just by virtue of the fact that you've been exposed to different languages.
And it's not even languages too, it's even English dialects within North America. Like, we speak a certain way in Toronto, but people in Montreal speak a different way.
True.
People in the States, various parts of states speak different ways. Whenever I've coached a lot of my fellow, I'm originally from Montreal, some of my fellow Montrealers on voiceover stuff, and I'll hear them say certain things, and I'm like, oh, you're saying this way because you also speak French, or because you also grew up maybe in an Italian community growing up, and so you say certain words that are not in the, like, you know, generic North American English, which is what most of these clients want.
Can you give us an example of that?
Not off the top of my head.
That's fine.
But yeah, it's just one of those things that when I hear it, I'll clock it, and I'll go, oh, okay, this is like the multiple language thing, where it's like, because I've been so surrounded by different languages and dialects and stuff growing up, that it's just, my ear has gotten attuned to it.
Is there one language in particular that you would say you feel the most comfortable with?
I mean, English for sure.
Yeah.
Just because I use it in my everyday, and but I mean, I love languages. I think it's they're so beautiful, and they're in all their own way, and it gives, each language can give you a different attitude. You know, right?
And do you find yourself code switching? Like, is there like an Armenian Liana, and then like a Torontonian Liana, and then there's like a Montreal Liana?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody does this, is that the groups, when you're with different groups of people, you tend to kind of like readjust.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would definitely agree that for sure comes in.
Yeah, awesome. What is your least favorite thing about your job?
About my voiceover job, I would probably say the admin work.
Okay.
Because, you know, being your own boss, I'm in a corporation here in Ontario, and it's just me. And so I have to do everything. I am HR, I am admin, I am like all the things that you're supposed to hire people for. Because I don't really need to have the extra help right now, and so kind of doing all of that on my quote unquote off time can be frustrating, and especially when I don't understand it. So a lot of the business side of my brain has been self-taught through watching different YouTube videos and TED Talks and reading different books and just talking to different mentors and seeing what they think. So yeah, I would say that's still definitely something that I'm still learning and adjusting to. And yeah, working for yourself is definitely an adjustment. I think when you're so used to answering to somebody else and having a boss tell you, okay, be here at this time and do this at this time, it's very easy to just follow that and be fine with it. But when you are working for yourself and you have to give yourself that extra motivation, and it's finding the balance of like, okay, am I going to work every single day for X amount of hours, or I'm going to forgive myself and say, I'm going to give myself this week off. That's what I find is hard.
Yeah.
Being an entrepreneur, for sure.
Knowing when to when to work, when to rest.
When it's okay to give yourself time to rest. Yeah. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs have this problem, especially when you're in the first 5 years of your business. You're still building, you're still trying to figure out, you know, what sells, what doesn't, what's your brand. Like you're still working things out. And so you feel guilty when you take a day off when maybe you could be working. And that's definitely something that I didn't expect to struggle with, that I'm finding now. I'm in my third year of you know, sole proprietor to incorporation. It's been about 3 years, and it's definitely a learning curve in that sense.
Can you describe the difference between sole proprietorship and being incorporated?
Yeah, so being a sole proprietor basically means that you are like a one person. You are like a contract worker, basically. And so at the time I was working contract to contract with different serving jobs, acting jobs, brand ambassador work, you name it. If they were hiring, I was there. But then I decided to incorporate a year ago for tax purposes. Because I have half of my income does come from the US. When I was doing my taxes last year, it raised my tax bracket because of the conversion. And my accountant was like, hey, maybe you should incorporate. And it was something that I had no clue about, didn't know anything about it, and my accountant's wonderful, and she educated me on that. And I would say the main difference is that there's just way more paperwork with an incorporation, but if you're somebody who's an entrepreneur and wants to start a business, like, incorporate right away, because it also protects you. So another plus with incorporation is you're not liable. Your company is liable. So, like, you know, if something happens to you as a sole proprietor, somebody can sue you as an individual. But if something happens to your company, they can sue the company, quote unquote, and then, like, you're safe. There's like a liability thing there as well. Good tips.
And what's your favorite thing about your work and your job?
Oh my God, making my own schedule. Yeah. I mean, I start my days at like working days, like 11 a.m., 10 a.m. I get to, like, take the morning if I want to work out, if I want to do other things in the AM, run errands. Like, I'm not pressed to start my day at rush hour and then end my day at rush hour. So definitely the freedom of making my own hours is amazing. And I would recommend it to anybody who wants to have that kind of freedom.
Awesome. And what is your educational background? Because you did mention theater school. So where'd you go to school? Like, what was that like?
So I'm from Montreal, and so in Montreal we have Cégep, which is kind of like a pre-university. And I did 3 years of professional theater program there at Dawson College, and it was more geared towards classical theater. And then I did 2 years of musical theater training here in Toronto at Randolph Academy. And then after that, I've just take the odd workshops. I go to a lot of conferences for voiceover, which helps in my networking as well. I try to take classes as much as I can in anything that I feel needs a little bit of work, or even just a refresher. And so I've had a lot of people be like, why are you taking classes? Like, you're already good at this. And I'm like, yeah, you could already be good at something, but you need to practice it. And I think that is the key to success, is to, like, if you already think you're, like, good at something and then you're just going to leave it, then, I don't know, there's, like, a sense of, like, cockiness that comes with that. And it's like, you should always be open to learning and always be open to feedback.
And I think also because our society is just so fast-paced in terms of change that you may be great at something, but there might be aspects about that are changing that you need to update yourself on.
Yeah.
New technology even.
Yeah, and when I take these classes, I meet amazing people. So I take classes for networking as well, because I'll meet people and I'll say, hey, like, you were great, maybe let's collaborate, or I know somebody who I can link you up with, and you guys can collaborate. Because I think just having that sense of collaboration within, I mean, ideally every community, but within the arts community is so important, because so much of our work is based on collaboration. Okay, what drew me into theater? I think I definitely always liked performing. I was a shy kid for, like, most of my life, but then when I got to high school, I was also in Scouts and Armenian Scouts in Montreal, and we used to do, like, skits and funny things, and I was always kind of, like, down to do that kind of performance. And so the love for performing kind of slowly, organically grew. And when I got to high school, I realized that I was funny and people were laughing at my jokes. And I was like, great, maybe I'll like do some performance stuff. Yeah. And so I started doing plays in high school and kind of starting to explore that. And then when I was, I think in grade 9, I played Lady Macbeth in Macbeth. And that was like life-changing because I was like, wow, I want to be an actor now. And then it just kind of developed from there. And I wanted to be a classical actor for so long. I was like, I want to, be in Stratford and Shaw and do Shakespeare and Chekhov and all these things. And then I discovered musical theater, and that all went out the window.
What would you say about your experience in theater? Is there anything you've carried over into voice acting?
Oh, of course. Definitely the awareness of the voice, like your instrument, basically. Being aware of how it works and when you're using it, what is a healthy way to use it and what is an unhealthy way to use it. How to warm up, how to cool down, how to have longevity and endurance within your work. Because when you are speaking into a mic, you're not necessarily supporting your voice with your diaphragm when you would be on stage, and that causes much more vocal fatigue much quicker. And so, if you're, for example, if you work in an office and you talk all day kind of at this level for 8 hours a day, your voice is going to be exhausted.
Oh, I used to work in a call center. Right? My throat was fried.
Yeah, because you're talking without diaphragm support. Whereas when you're on stage, you have to use your diaphragm because you have to project. And so that protects your voice more.
I would think it would be the opposite because you're projecting so much. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. So it's a lot of core work, and it's a lot of like, using your diaphragm to help bring the voice forward. Because I actually had this problem when I started musical theater school. I would be singing and I would say to myself, like, why can't I hit this note? Like, why is my voice so tired? And I went to, I don't know what the doctor is called, but he went to check my vocal cords.
Yeah.
And he basically said to me, you have a resonant voice in your everyday life, and so you're not using your diaphragm when you don't need to. Like in regular speech, he's like, you're not using your diaphragm, which is why your throat's tired, your voice is tired. And I was like, oh, cool.
So do you do that now? Do you find yourself using your diaphragm more?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it comes with like deep breathing and like centering yourself. So like yoga helps a lot with that, or any kind of like physical activity.
Up straighter.
Any physical activity kind of gets you centered and gets the voice grounded. I don't know if maybe it's the most important thing, but I would say it's definitely something that I observed and I learned is watching others, giving feedback, but then also receiving feedback. So being able to watch a performance and give critical feedback, some that is constructive and some that is complimentary, because there is a balance with that, right? And I do coach as well, and so I always find it important to find the things that like a student will really excel at, and then, okay, but these are the things we need to work on. But what you're doing here is great, so let's acknowledge that. And I know that I experienced a lot of that in my program here in Toronto, where we would get up, everyone's gonna sing, and people give each other feedback, and and that's something. Sometimes like a misconception with performing arts schools where it's very catty, and it's very like there's like a negative energy, competitive, yeah, but like not nice competitive,
not healthy competitive.
Yeah. Whereas I think it should be the opposite. And, as much as sometimes there isn't, like, always healthy competition, it's just good to acknowledge that and to know that there is that other option.
I love that. And what was your first job?
My first job ever?
Yeah, like ever. Like the first thing you earned a paycheck for.
I was an after-school, and I say this loosely, receptionist at my high school. Because I wasn't really a receptionist.
You were a loose receptionist?
A loose receptionist. No, we had, like, after school, our receptionist would, like, leave at 3, and then from, like, 3 to 6, like, somebody would just kind of, like, sit at her desk and, like, sign people in and sign people out. And I did that when I was in high school, I think the last 2 years. And then I worked at a chocolate store for like 2 years at Lindt. You know that company?
I love Lindt.
Oh, it was a great job. So much chocolate. And then I did mostly serving after that. Like when I moved here, my first job was a catering job. And then I when I moved here, I realized what money was. Because
it's Toronto.
Yeah. I was working this really awesome catering job, and we do private house parties and big events, and I was like, whoa, these people are rich. What? And so it was like a big culture shock for me.
I want money.
Yeah. And
I want that too.
Yeah, you're kind of like, whoa, now I have this like drive. I'm like, I want what they have.
Yeah. And healthy drive is good. Nothing wrong with healthy ambition.
Yeah. Healthy hustle.
Healthy hustle. Love that. So what would you say there's anything from those non-acting related jobs that you've taken into your career and your business and your job now?
Tough skin. Oof, working, serving, and catering, as much as it has its highs, it has its lows. And it's tough. I also worked back of house in a kitchen for a bit, which, you know, is exactly what it is when you watch anything with Gordon Ramsay in a kitchen. I was getting yelled high pressure, getting yelled at for things that maybe weren't even your fault. And just kind of just taking it and being like, it's okay, like, I'm sorry, I messed up, let me fix it. And so having that tough skin helps with auditioning and helps with doing contract to contract work, because like now I will send out estimates to customers, I'll give them, you know, what my fee is for things, knowing that they might say no. Like most of the time they might say no, and it's like, I can't have that hit me personally, because then I won't be able to emotionally get on with my day.
You need to be able to sustain your business, and resilience is a huge part of that.
Totally, yeah.
What are some of the highs from your serving days?
Oh man, the food.
The food!
The food was the best. We would have some chefs that we'd work with, and their food would be so amazing, and you know, sometimes we'd get like we'd get to like taste different things, and when I was working in the kitchen, it was really fun because the whole kitchen staff was great, and we would just like crack jokes all the time. Like when it was time to work and it was high pressure and we would like be plating things, like that's when we would all just shut up and work. But when we were just like prepping and just hanging out in the kitchen, it was awesome. The
camaraderie. I didn't have a food service job, but I had a service job, and the camaraderie is like the number one thing I miss the most.
Oh, for sure.
Because you're literally in the trenches together.
Yeah. And you experience all those highs and lows within that one shift together, and then you just all go out later and you're like, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Have you ever doubted that this work is what you're supposed to be doing?
I don't think so. I think that as an artist, we always doubt, what am I doing? But I never doubted that I was on the wrong path. I just was kind of like, okay, I know that I want to be in this world. I just have to find a way for me to make this a living and be successful at it, because I don't see myself in any other field or in any other kind of career path that doesn't involve art in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah. Do you think you'd ever, like, if somebody came up to you and was like, Liana, I've got movies for you, I've got TV for you, would you leave voice acting?
Well, the beauty of being in the arts is that you could switch it up.
Switching it?
Right? And so there has been times where, actually in the last couple of months, I've had really good repeat clients, and so I haven't had to hustle as hard for voiceover because they're coming to me. And so I could put my focus into different shows, I could put my focus into different projects. Whereas when I'm not having regular clients, that's when I have to audition and submit and hustle and send in proposals to companies, which makes it harder to juggle other projects, for sure. But like, if somebody comes to me with an offer, like, I'm not going to say no.
And how do you continue, because you did mention sometimes as an actor, sometimes as an artist, you doubt, what are you doing? Like, what am I doing? How do you continue despite that doubt?
Reassessing everything. I journal quite a bit, and I manifest a lot as well. I learned about manifestation a couple of years back. Actually, one of the jobs that I had was for a multi-level marketing company. When I finished school, because I was real desperate for work, and I really liked serving, and it was making me good money, but I was just kind of like, I need something else. And so I got into this multi-level marketing company, which I will not name. But through that, I met wonderful people. And actually some of them are my mentors, which is great. But being in that kind of community of female entrepreneurs really pushed me in a direction that I was like, oh, okay, if I just switch my thinking and think of myself as a business instead of just an artist, maybe I can make this work. And so that kind of prompted the like entrepreneurial path. And yeah, so when if I'm journaling, you know, I'll write like how I'm feeling that day and assess, okay, where am I at in my life? What do I want? How am I going to get there? And make them into like realistic steps. So when I'm in this mode of like, what am I doing? Okay, great. What am I doing? Literally write down, what am I doing right now? What do I want? How am I going to get there in a realistic way? And what are the little steps that I could accomplish to meet that goal? Because it could be overwhelming. It could be overwhelming when you're just kind of, you know, auditioning and they just go into the air and you never hear from anybody. And you're like, am I good? Am I bad? Do people like me?
I've learned that just means that there's something better for you later.
Yeah, but that's just a different way of thinking about it, right? A lot of people who have to, or actors and artists have to constantly face this rejection. And it's really hard not to take it personally if you don't have that mindset of like, no, something better is going to come. And almost every single time I say no to a project or a project doesn't work out, almost immediately something better comes. And so it's just that faith.
You gotta have faith.
Yeah.
And that sounds so cliche, but you have to develop a real relationship with faith.
Yeah, and trust the process.
Yeah.
Like, we learned this in acting school, like, you know, when you're in the rehearsal process, sometimes you feel like you're not getting it, sometimes, like, it's not clicking, and then have directors say, like, just trust the process. Like, trust that this is your artistic process, and, you know, you start with the reading, and you're figuring out what the character is, and then figuring out their arc, and their intentions, and their relationships to everyone else, and then all of a sudden, one day, it just clicks. And you're like, wow, okay, we're, like, the 2 days before performance, and all of a sudden, everything makes sense. Because you trusted that by you doing the work. As long as you keep doing the work, trust the process and it'll happen.
You have to go through it to go through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen Lisa Kudrow's speech at Vassar? She did a commencement speech that was her alma mater. She got rejected from Frasier and ended up getting Friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, actually, Mark Ruffalo also had done a quote where he said he didn't get his first job until he did 400 auditions. So it's like, keep plugging.
And Mark Ruffalo.
I know. He's beautiful.
I don't know. I mean, I would never say no to Mark Ruffalo.
Right?
So I don't know, like, who are these people saying no to Mark Ruffalo?
No, he's great, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and like we hear of so many artists that, like, they say it takes 10 years to be an overnight success.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so many artists that we think, like Lizzo, perfect example.
Yes.
She released her first song, 3 years ago? Something like that. And she's been, her work has been being recognized, but then all of a sudden she just blew up. And it's like, whoa, was she an overnight success? Like, no. She's been hustling hard.
A lot of sleepless nights before that overnight success.
Yeah. It's a good one. I like that.
Yeah. Ooh, sometimes the gems fall out of this mouth. So how do you sustain your passion for this work on a day-to-day basis? What keeps you motivated and passionate?
I'm being honest with you, I'm pretty money driven.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, no shame with that.
Yeah.
Money lets you do things.
Yeah. And I'm also about, like, you know, getting paid for your worth, like what you're worth, right?
Yeah.
Your work. And so I've been implementing that a bit more, and it kind of falls back into the, like, okay, well, if somebody doesn't want to do this job for me at the fee that I'm asking, somebody else will. And so that kind of keeps it going as well, because I have clients who are willing to pay what I'm asking that's worth my time. And so that keeps pushing me, because I'm like, okay, there's a need there. People are willing to commit to working with me, and so that keeps me going in that sense. But sometimes when I kind of get voiceover jobs that are just kind of like on hold messages, or like e-learning scripts that are just like, they're fine, like they're just like a little boring. I try to look into different aspects of my creative brain to, like, keep me motivated and remind me why I'm doing this. And, you know, it's the old thing of, like, whenever I have a shitty day and I just want to complain, I'm like, no, you're doing something fun.
Yeah.
Like, remember that you worked hard for this, and that you're doing something that isn't what you were doing 5 years ago.
And it's like a fucking blessing just to be able to pay your rent in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I feel like my life is getting monotonous, I just make it a point to write down or just to even think about one interesting or funny thing or one different thing that happened that day. And that just prevents me from seeing my life as just a blur of days that look the same.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I think that falls in line with journaling a little bit, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't journal on a regular basis, like not every single day, but I'll do it when I feel the impulse to just write. And I always find that it helps. And I'll get into these writing fits, I guess, of just, writing down all the interesting things that have happened to remind me, like, hey, you actually had a great month.
Yeah.
Like, don't put yourself down because this last week was really bad.
It's a bad week, not a bad life.
Yeah. Or even if you look at it from a year perspective, like sometimes you have like a couple months that are just really dead and like nothing's really happening, or like your personal life is like on another level of just like it feels like a mess.
Yeah.
And then it's like if you look at what the year started it with and where you are now, it's like look how much you've accomplished up until this point and be proud of that and acknowledge that you've worked hard, and maybe you just need a second to just breathe.
And you can't be on top of everything all the time. You can't have, especially as women, you're supposed to have like a sparkling personal life, sparkling professional life, and the perfect heterosexual woman needs to have the perfect boyfriend, the perfect job, perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect body,
it's this
perfect clothes,
to maintain, right?
And just don't fall for it. It's so hard. And you have to keep reminding yourself not to fall for it.
Yeah.
And just focus on, I'm actually doing really good in this aspect of my life. So why don't I just celebrate that instead of focusing on all the other aspects that may not be perfect just yet.
Yeah.
Or may not be perfect ever and will not be perfect ever.
Mm-hmm. And like just be cool with that.
Just let it be.
Yeah.
Yeah, celebrate the good. Yeah. Just make sure you keep celebrating the small wins.
Yes, and I think a lot of people forget that because they're looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
For sure.
Especially when you're an ambitious person and you want more, and you really have to struggle with that delicate balance of being thankful for what you have and also wanting more.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But it's like, it's a learning process and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Have you ever had imposter syndrome?
Oh, like, I wouldn't say all the time, but I definitely feel that sometimes, and I have to acknowledge that I deserve sometimes, like, the things that I'll get. And I have to acknowledge and I have other people who remind me that they're like, hey, you worked hard, like, you deserve this.
That's really important to have other voices in your head, because if you're the only voice in your head, it's just going to bounce around and drive you mad. You need other people, you need,
I think if you're somebody who tends to be self-critical, and I'm definitely very self-critical, in a good way, but then also in a detrimental way.
I think it's another trait of an ambitious person.
Yeah.
Is you're always looking for ways you can improve, which is your strength and also your weakness.
Yeah, because you're not taking a moment to be like, wow, look what I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know a lot of people, and again, a lot of artists fall under this like imposter syndrome thing where it's like, why did I get this? Why didn't somebody else get this? Like, am I worthy of this and whatever? And I think it's good to have a strong support system and have a strong group of chosen family, real family, coworkers, whatever, just to be there to tell you like, yes, like I see the work that you're doing, and this promotion or this, job that you booked is like, you deserve this. You put the hard work, and now this is your reward. Go have fun.
I like the word friendtors. So like friends who are your mentors, which basically just means looking to your friends circle for people who uplift you and really striving to have friendships that both build and deconstruct, and people you can support who support you.
Yeah.
And just really like making that a function of your friendships.
Yeah, and I will say that I've kind of been learning about that through different, watching different like TED Talks and things about entrepreneurship, right? Like, it's really important to have a good support system, and I have great parents, and I'm so blessed to have them, but I also have like really great friends, and when you move to a new city, you have to like start over with the friend group, right?
Yeah.
And so it's gone through a lot of ups and downs, but there's been a couple people that have kind of been there for the past 5 years, I would say, and we've proven to each other that it's like we lift each other up, this friendship grows, and we're there for each other when the times are hard, but also for celebration. And so it's important to acknowledge those friendships and to keep those friendships strong because you will need them. Like, you will need each other.
100% agree.
Yeah.
Are your parents still in Montreal?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need, like, family here.
Yeah, like, yeah. I'm a big believer in chosen family.
Yeah. So we've talked about this already, but let's talk about it more. Let's talk about money. So often, especially as women, especially as people of color, women of color, we're told that it's materialistic to desire money, it's greedy to want money, it's greedy to ask for money. What would you say is your relationship with money?
So I think growing up, it was kind of like, don't talk about money kind of thing. And I actually read a really good book, which I recommend to literally everybody. It's called You're a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero.
Okay.
And reading that book, I just like the way that she voices it, and she's very funny. And so the way that she talks about money and our misconceptions and what we've grown up with, it hits home because it's like, you know, we're taught to not talk about our income, to not talk about, you know, just there's just this like negativity around finances.
It's one of the taboos. It's like sex, religion, money. One of the 3 taboos that you are just not supposed to talk about in polite society.
Yeah. Which I don't understand because it's like, you know, if you're working a job and you want to be paid correctly and you want to know that you're getting a fair rate, that's a conversation that you shouldn't be scared to have.
You should be talking to your coworkers about how much you're making because you never know when your male coworker is making more than you do. So just have those conversations.
Yeah. And I mean, being somebody who negotiates a lot of fees and negotiates a lot of contracts, like I've had to force myself to kind of look at numbers and be like, these are just numbers. And it actually helps a lot because I'll see a paycheck or I'll see a fee or whatever it is and I'm like, okay, this is just a number. It's not like, I don't associate this like insane value with it.
Yeah, you can want money without attaching your worth to money. You can want a relationship without attaching your worth to a relationship. You can want to look good without attaching your worth to your appearance. It's just all about that middle.
Yeah,
path.
it's a slow progression.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of other books out there that kind of talk about money and how we've been kind of conditioned to think of it in a certain way. And so if and I know a lot of artists are scared to ask for money. That's another thing too.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we'll work for free. Like, it's fine. You know? And so you like...
It's not fine.
No, you devalue your worth. If you spent like $30,000 going to school, why are you going to do a job for free? Like, fine, when you finish school and you're trying to build a resume, that's one thing. But when you have like, you know, a good enough resume, you like have experience, like, why are you doing these jobs that are for free? It's like, a plumber is going to come to your house and they're going to say, oh, they're going to fix this happened to me. He came to fix something in my bathtub, the spout, $300, 10 minutes of work. I didn't question it. I'm like, well, great, you fixed my spout. Here's $300. Like, why is it that when somebody is an artist that we question that, you know?
It's because people take advantage of the fact that you would do it for free. Exactly.
And so I know within the voiceover community, we're really striving to reverse that and to educate our clients and to tell them like, you know, no, these are actually the rates for, you know, this is a rate for a studio session. This is a rate if you want to put an ad on the radio for X amount of weeks or months or whatever it may be. And just to educate them and give them that fee and say, great, this is the fee. We can negotiate, but like, this is what it is. And so I think it's important to have those conversations and know your worth as a person, as an artist, as a performer, that you shouldn't be doing your work for free unless you want to, unless you're like, oh, it's for a charity or it's for like, you know, some kind of a higher purpose. Because I've done stuff for free or I've done stuff for low pay, but it's because I agreed to it.
It was giving you something else other than money.
Exactly. It was giving me some kind of other fulfillment. And so I was like, okay, great, I'll take this job on because it's fulfilling me in a different way versus just financially.
And thanks for listening. That's all we have time for this week. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And since I did just hear myself talking about how it's okay to ask for money, I guess I'll say Patreon will be in the description. If you did enjoy the episode, I hope you'll consider contributing. You know, give and take. If you enjoyed something that I did, I hope you'll consider contributing. All of Liana's links to her Instagram will be in the description below, as well as her links to Blue Jasmine Limited, which is the name of her company. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.